Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and today is April 1st, so it's time to share with you what I read for the month of March. Now, I'm in kind of a time crunch today because you may have heard in an earlier video, I am going to Texas this weekend for a family reunion, but my plans have changed a little bit. Katie is not going, we've canceled the flight reservations. I am going to drive, so I can get on the road tonight if I want to. I don't have to wait till tomorrow to get on a plane. And I'm kind of excited about that because if I can get on the road soon enough, maybe I can stop along the way and do some book shopping. We shall see. Anyway, I'm excited about the change, although I'm sad that Katie has decided not to go with me, but it's all good. And meanwhile, I've got like 40 books I need to return to the library, so I want to go ahead and get this wrap-up done before I leave so that I can get all of these things returned. So I finished a total of 24 books. I did do a weekly wrap-up at the end of each week, or at, you know, not really at the end of the week. They were on like Monday or Tuesday, but basically I did a wrap-up of what I read the previous week. So since that week 4 wrap-up, I finished 4 more books, and I'll tell you about those, and then I'll do kind of a summary. I'll tell you about everything I read for different readathons and for the prompts and all of that, and we'll just let it go at that. Let me just stop right here, though, and say thank you to everyone who had anything to do with March Mystery Madness. It was phenomenal this year. Just so great. I mean, it's always been great, but it is just... It's just taken on a life of its own, and I'm just thrilled. It's just fantastic. So to everyone who hosted, participated, did anything, thank you so much. Now, I read a total of 19 mysteries, and I finished all the prompts for March Mystery Madness, except the bonus prompt. I did read some books with great titles, but I didn't read any books specifically because they had a great title. So I can't really say that I accomplished that bonus prompt, but that's okay. I'm excited about what I got read. I also read a few books for other readathons and challenges. So let me first just tell you about the 4 books that I read that I finished in the last couple of days of the month. I listened to A Deadly Inside Scoop by Abby Collette. This was the Book One Cozies Club pick. And let me just give Di a shout out. Her channel is Desus19 Hearts, and she has started doing a really fun thing with some of the books that she reads for Book One Cozies Club, where she does a video, but it's just an audio-only video, where she discusses a segment of the book in different parts. So this book is divided into 7 parts, 6 chapters each, and you just start with part 1, you read the first section, and watch her video, comment about that section, go back, read the next section, watch part 2 video, and you go like that. And so I did that yesterday while I was listening to this book. I didn't get done till after midnight, somewhere, maybe after 1 a.m., but I'm still counting it for the month, because I think I finished before it was midnight in her time zone, which is Pacific, so that's good. Anyway, she was commenting back and forth as I was watching her videos and finishing up the book, and it was a lot of fun. This was a fun book. It had a couple of little parts that I wasn't crazy about. I had forgotten until I heard that part that there had been a mention on our Discord group earlier in the month when some people were reading it, that there is a little spoiler in here for Murder on the Orient Express. And I feel bad because the person who was reading this was going to read that this month as well and had read this first. So that was kind of, you know, that was bad that that was in there. But I guess some authors maybe feel like if you're a reader, then you know most of those classics, and so they're not too worried about spoiling it. It's unfortunate because, you know, there's so many classics, and even those of us who are readers haven't gotten around to all the classics, and so it is kind of it's a gray area. But anyway, the spoiler that it does give didn't really give too much, but enough that if you were just about to sit down and read it, then you would remember this when you sit down to read, you know, the other book. But anyway, overall, I enjoyed the book, and I would definitely continue the series. So then, also in the last couple of days of the month, I finally finished a middle grade book for middle grade March. This is book 2 in the Luck Ugly series. This is just a really fun fantasy adventure series, and this is a trilogy that I'm trying to finish this year. I did not get to the third one, but I actually started it today, so it will get read or listened to in the month of April. And this has silhouettes on the cover. It also has strong family ties, so this definitely would count for 2 of the prompts for March Mystery Madness. Middle grade March. So sorry. I also started another middle grade book, and this would count for 2 of the other prompts. This was written in the 60s, which is the decade I was born, and it also it's a book about travel. This is called Taran Wanderer. It's book 4 in the Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander, and I only got started with it, but still it counts towards those prompts, and I will get it finished. And then, speaking of other readathons, I did have 2 books earlier in the month that would count for the Irishreadathon. One was for my book club. It's The Witch Elm by Tana French. And then another one was also for my book club, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Neither book were books that I particularly enjoyed, but you know, they weren't horrible. They just were not my kind of books. But they counted for that readathon. They counted for my book club. So I'm glad I got them done. Then going back now to the last few books that I finished. An older book that I finished. This is from the Leap, Horn, and Cheese series, or the Navajo series by Tony Hillerman. I think this is book 10 or 9. I don't remember. Coyote Waits. Anyway, I did not read it in its full form. I wanted to listen to it on audio, and the only audio I could find, thankfully I could find it in my own shelves, was this abridged audio version on cassette. Look at that. Anyway, I did listen to this twice. It was so short. I did get the gist of the story, but, you know, with any abridged version, you don't get all of the details. You don't get all the thought processes of the main characters and everything, but I still enjoyed it. Maybe at some point I can go back and read the full version, but for now, I had that on my shelf. I have 4 of these from this series on abridged audio that I picked up at a library sale a few years ago, and I had already previously listened to 2 of them, and so now I think I still have 1 more that's a little farther down in the series. And since I couldn't find this on Hoopla or Audible or anything, I'm glad that I had it, because that was really the only way I was going to have time to get to that book, and it counted for one of the March Mystery Madness prompts, so that's good. Then another book that I finished near the end of the month is on ebook, and it is a debut novel, cozy mystery by Jessica Thompson. I have a better picture than that, which I showed in an earlier video, but anyway, this is called A Caterer's Guide to Love and Murder, and this is Jessica's debut novel. I follow her on Instagram, and she sent me an e-copy, and then I started reading it on my computer. It was an ARC, which she had sent me a few months ago. Now the book is already out, and so after reading the first chapter, I thought, you know, I think I'd rather just have this on my Kindle so that I can listen to it, you know, the text to talk and all of that, and carry it around rather than having to read it on my computer. So I went ahead and just bought it. It was, I think, $3.99 for my Kindle, and now I have it. I listened to it kind of quickly yesterday, or finished it up yesterday. I will go back and read it again. It's not long, and I definitely want to take a closer look at the recipes. Also, one interesting feature of the book that you don't see in a lot of mysteries is that at the end of each chapter, there was a little snippet from the murderer's perspective. And then at the end, as things are being revealed, there's a whole chapter from the murderer's perspective. So that makes it very unique. It also has some really good sounding recipes. So I would recommend that you check it out. It's not an expensive audiobook. And especially if you follow her on Instagram, then you might want to get the book and check it out. And hopefully there's going to be more in the series. I would definitely read more in the series. So that's awesome. And those then were the last 4 books that I got done. So all the other books that I finished during the month, I have shared with you on my weekly wrap-ups. And so let me just kind of give you a summary now of everything that I read. And I will show you what counted for each of the prompts for March Mystery Madness. And we'll go from there. So I finished a total of 24 books. 19 were audio, 3 were ebooks, and 2 were physical books. Then 5 of them were not mysteries, and 1 of them was a middle grade book, and 3 of them were historical books, and 1 was a fantasy book. Then, of the mysteries, 13 were cozy mysteries, 2 were grittier suspense type books, 3 were older, more classic type books, 5 were first in series, 2 trilogies I made progress in, and those were my middle grade / YA trilogies. I read the second book in 2 different trilogies, and of the other series that I worked on, I finished 4 or caught up with 4, and those count for my 21 series I'm trying to finish or catch up with this year for my Get Serious About Series challenge. Then I made progress in 3 other series. I read 2 in one series, 3 in another series, and 1 in another series. The one that I only read 1 in, I don't have a copy of it. It was the Writer's Apprentice series, and I thought I was going to be catching up with that series, but then after I finished the 5th book, which is Death with a Dark Red Rose, which I also counted for the color prompt, then I realized there's a novella that I have not read, and it's a Christmas themed novella, so I'm not going to rush to read it. I think I bought it for my Kindle. If I didn't, I will, and I'll read that when it gets closer to December. So I didn't quite catch up with that series, but I at least made progress. And let's see. So let's just go now to, I mentioned the 2 books that count for the Irishreadathon, and I mentioned the books that count for middle grade March. So at the beginning of the month, I read 2 books that would have counted for the Historathon if I had finished them in February. The second book in this trilogy is called Love and War, and I did count that for the Historathon, although I didn't finish it until February. This is book 3, which I'm going to read in April. In fact, I've got the CD version, and since I'm going to be driving to Texas, I think I will take it with me. I wasn't going to take any library books on the plane, but since I'm driving, I think it'll be okay. I'm going to take the audio CD copy of that. Then I ended up finishing one of the series that I finished. Again, this is something I had checked out on Hoopla for the Historathon, and I didn't get it even started in February. So I listened to it at the beginning of March. This is from the Brides of the West series by Lloyd Copeland. It's a historical Christian romance. It's called Patience, and that finished a series for me, so that's good. And then later in the month, I read another historical book. I listened to this on audio for book club, The Girl in White Gloves by Kerri Maher, and this is a book about Grace Kelly. So those are my historical books that I ended up reading for this month. And let's see now. Let me go through the prompts for March Mystery Madness. So for the prompt single, I am counting Rebecca. I still, I got through this and I didn't really see what all the fuss was about. It was interesting. It was creepy a little bit. I think I would probably appreciate this more if I read it in print. I read it on audio, and of course there's always a risk that you're going to miss some things, and I did, I'm sure. It was an interesting book, and I think even though now I know the ending and how it all comes out, I would enjoy watching the movie, and I would probably enjoy reading it again and maybe reading it in print next time. For the prompt number, I was going to read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but I did not get to it. So what I'm counting for that is a book called First Call by Janice J. Richardson. And it is the 4th book in the Spencer Funeral Home Niagara Cozy Mystery series. This last book was not super cozy, not really gritty either, just a little darker, but still very enjoyable. I enjoyed the whole series. In fact, I just got a message from Janice, and I asked her if she was working on anything else. I think she's working on a new series now, and perhaps I can interview her in the future. The series is about a funeral director, and Janice is a former funeral director. So she knows of what she writes about, and she also has a memoir on her experience of becoming a funeral director. So she's a very interesting woman, and I would highly recommend picking up any or all of her books. So then for the prompt person, I can actually count several, but what I am counting are the 3 books that I listened to in the Mr. Monk series. I have, let's see if I can remember. what numbers? Number 6, 7, and 8. Yes, so book number 6, Mr. Monk Goes to Germany. And this is a library copy. I don't own this one. Mr. Monk is Miserable. And then I do own this one, Mr. Monk and the Dirty Cop. So this is all I can get on audio. Books 1 up to book 8 are all that are available, I think, on Audible and Hoopla. So I don't know if the other books are not on audio or what. But anyway, I have gotten through all of the books that I can now on audio. I have a couple of the others, but I probably won't rush to read those. As I have time, I'll probably read what's on my shelf. If I find more, or if the library has more, I'll go ahead and attempt to read the rest in order. But mainly, I would like to clear some space on my shelf. I doubt I'll read these again, although I loved them. I would highly recommend them. But I think I'm going to go ahead now and take what I've read of this series and maybe try to trade these in at the used bookstore so that I can clear some space on my shelves. All right, so that was Person. For Place, earlier in the month, I read Murder at Mabel's Motel by G.A. McKevitt. This is book 3 in the Granny Read mystery series, which is a spin-off series of the Savannah Read mystery series, which I have not read. But in this series, Savannah is a young girl who wants to be a policeman or a detective, and then later on in the Savannah Read series, she's grown up and she's a detective. So I got this early in the month and I had to return it, but then as soon as I returned it, I put my name back on it on hold again to see if I could get it back in time for this wrap up, and I did. So I wanted to be able to show it to you. I thought this one was a little darker than the first book, but still very enjoyable, and I think the series is great. So that is for Place. Then for Weather, I was trying to get caught up to The Woman Who Walked in Sunshine by Alexander McCall Smith, which is the book after these two, but I didn't quite get to it, and I ended up finding another book that counted for Weather. So what I did read, these don't count for Weather, but let me go ahead and tell you about these right now. I read or listened to The Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon, and then The Handsome Man's Deluxe Cafe. This one I didn't like as much as most of the books that I've read from the series. I thought it could have, the actual cafe, there wasn't much about it. And there was another mystery that took up most of the book. So I think the title was kind of misleading. I think there was so much more that could have gone on with the cafe that, could have been fleshed out a little bit more. So I would have liked to have seen more about that. But anyway, these books are great. I have really, really loved them. And I'm glad that I got through 2 more of them. I've got the next book already checked out on Hoopla. So I will be listening to it this month. And then, so what I did end up reading for Weather is the book that Matt Wall was reading for his March Mystery Madness read-along, Death in the Clouds by Agatha Christie. I have not read a whole lot of books about Hercule Poirot, but I have read a smattering of them, and I never noticed before, and I hadn't really thought about it, but some of the characters in here kind of make fun of him a little bit. And I commented in an earlier video about that. And somebody else made a comment about how I think the British didn't really have a lot of respect for him, maybe, in the book. And so there was kind of a conflict. I don't even remember now. But I suppose if I started this series from the beginning, I would get a little bit more of the character development. But up to this point, I've just read a smattering of his mysteries, and so I haven't really started picking up on all of the nuances of his personality and character like I would if I had started from the beginning. So, I don't know. I don't have that project in mind to do. A lot of people read Agatha Christie from beginning to end, and maybe someday. It's not high priority, but anyway, I enjoyed this. I was kind of hoping that all of it would take place in the air, and it didn't, so that was a little bit of a disappointment, but still, I'm glad that I have read another Agatha Christie book. And then for time, I am going to count Coyote Waits, because waiting signifies time spent. So I'm going to count that for time. And then for space, now, some people were having a hard time with this because they're thinking outer space. Well, there's lots of different kinds of space. It could be a living space. It could be any kind of space. And I counted eggs in purgatory because some people believe that purgatory is that space between this life and the afterlife. So that's why I counted this one. This was fun. In fact, I've got a fun quote marked here. I think I read the quote, but I don't know the character that said it. In my earlier video, I said that it was a policeman. I don't think it was a policeman that said the quote, because they wouldn't have made that joke, I don't think. But anyway, if you want to see the quote, I'm not going to read it again here, but it's in my week 4 wrap up. But anyway, I enjoyed the book. There was a little bit of light swearing in this that I wasn't expecting. It wasn't over the top, no F word or anything like that, but just a little more coarse than I was thinking that it would be, but still very enjoyable, and I will definitely read more of this Cackleberry Club series. This is the first in that series. And then I also participated in a couple of other read-alongs. Early in the month, the Bookish Bryants led a read-along of the first book in the Noodle Shop Mystery Series. This is the second book, but I could not ever get a physical copy of the first one, which is called Death by Dumpling. This is book 2, which I will get to one of these days, Dim Sum of All Fears. This series is by Vivian Chen. It was very enjoyable. We had a fun time talking about Death by Dumpling on Voxer, and I'm so glad that I read that, because now it has introduced me to a new to me series that I would have never really thought about reading, and I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the setting, and I thought it was great. Then another read-along I participated in was hosted by Sarah from the Bookish Knitter, and she reread The Bachelor Girl's Guide to Murder by Rachel McMillan. And this is lightly faith-based and very clean, very old-fashioned, and I thought it was adorable. I liked the little light romance even better than the mystery, but I enjoyed this. I would probably pick up more from this series, and I'm really glad that Sarah did this as a read-along, because I might not have picked it up otherwise, so that was awesome. There were a couple of other read-alongs that I did not participate in. Laura from Moms of Triplets 04 did a read-along of the first book in the Theodore Boone series by John Grisham. I had already read that. I've read at least 4 from that series, and I just didn't have time to reread it, but I hope that if you read that with her, that you enjoyed it. That is a fun series. If you have not read it, I would recommend it. And then I did not get to read the book with Courtney and her book club. They read Pulp Friction by Julianne Lindsay. Their theme this month was sequel, and so there is another book in that series, and it's a Christmas themed book. I had thought about going ahead and checking them both out from Hoopla and listening to them both, but in the end I ran out of time. And so Di, if you're watching this, perhaps we could read that first one for Book One Cozy's Club. Maybe this December or the next, since it's a Christmas themed book and first in series. So at some point I will get to that. Then let's see if there is anything else that I neglected to tell you about. I think that is just about everything. Let me check my list here. I also had another book for Place, Malice in Miami by Barbara Venkataraman. I interviewed her on my channel. This is a book in the Jamie Quinn mystery series. Jamie Quinn is kind of a reluctant family lawyer, and this is book 6 in that series, and I guess the final book. I don't know if she's going to write any more in that book or in that series or not, but that catches me up with that series. And let me check my other list just to be sure I didn't leave anything off of the 24 books that I finished. One thing that I would mention is I said that I finished one book in print and then read one more, and that was the book that I was copy editing. And that's the reason I only had a couple of print books, is because I have been spending most of my print reading time reading the Bible in 90 days, and I am still on track. I finished the Book of Lamentations by the end of March, and now today I started Ezekiel, and I'm on track to finish the whole Bible by the end of April. And I would have never thought it possible that I could read the Bible in 90 days, but it's happening. So, amen. It's going great. And other than that, everything that I had intended to read, I will either read it in April if it's already checked out from Hoopla, or I'll bump it back and get with the business of reading some Amish books. So coming up after my trip, I will be doing some videos regarding Amish books, Amish themed books, and Amish mysteries and recommendations and things like that. So I hope you'll stay tuned. Meanwhile, let's chat in the comments about anything you want to chat about regarding these books or anything you read for March Mystery Madness. Be sure to go on our Mystery Madness Goodreads group to the Whodunits folder if you want to comment about The Guest List by Lucy Foley. That was my read along. And also any comments that you share there, I would love to share with my In Real Life book club, which is discussing that book in April. So that's all I can think of for now. Thank you again to everyone who had anything to do with March Mystery Madness. And we'll see you soon. I hope that you're having a great day. Don't pull any big pranks today. If you're watching this on April Fool's Day, I hope you'll behave. And that's all for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.